And this is what I think he's searching for. He's not searching for an objective truth. As soon as we find it, then we get to stop talking about that because we found it. It's done. Now that discussion, we can't talk about money anymore because we found the truth about money. So nothing else to discuss. But that's not the objective truth you're looking for. The truth is the alignment. How can we all align to the truth? It's the alignment to truth. I think truth means more alignment than it means something, a circumstance, or a physical something. Hello, how are you today?
I'm not so bad.
Not so bad is just as good as good.
Just as good.
Very good.
Yes, I would agree.
We have time to talk. I'm going to talk with you in regard to a autobiography. We spoke in past about autobiographies, that we should pay more attention to them and what they do because of that book, The Noticer, we discussed. And that was the whole base of changing your perspective. If you want to gain a new perspective, read autobiographies. So we'll start by discussing Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. I guess it doesn't really matter if it's an autobiography or a biography. Do you have any questions right up front about that? Why we're going to talk about this? Or any insight?
So for those that didn't read The Noticer, what is the significance of reading an autobiography in particular instead of like a self-help book or a fiction or whatever, magazines?
So we should answer that question first. And I don't know. Do you know? An idea. What ideas do we have that is why we're autobiographies? In the Noticer book, he was handed biographies of people, famous people that solved problems. And I think that may be the issue. Famous or not so famous, but just if someone dealt with an issue that was big enough to solve in their life, that you could benefit from seeing how they solved it.
Okay, like learning from history is what we're basically learning from the mistakes and the lessons of others.
And the successes of others. So learning from, because generally people don't get biographies written about them or autobiographies unless they've lived a stellar life, unless something major occurred in their life. Normal people don't have biographies written about them. They write their journals and it never goes anywhere. But a journal that gets published must have some importance to society. At least someone thought it was valuable enough to print. And so we're trying to glean that value out of what happened in other people's lives. It's like using other people's experiences to benefit ourselves.
Okay. I think that's pretty clear then.
Right.
So magazines then could also be kind of like that because there's lifestyle articles, things like that, where they talk about other people. I remember when I was a little kid, we had a subscription to the Reader's Digest, and reading those stories about other people were my favorite things to read in those books, in those magazines particularly.
And it's a little story. I had a memory. Do you remember it, Winnie, any of them? What's a memory you have from one of those stories while you brought that up?
I don't remember in specifically any particular story. Like
Yeah. So I remember one from that time, and I've looked for it in the past. There's two stories instrumental that are about people, but C. Everett Koop, I believe he was the Surgeon General for a time, and this is probably in the 80s or 90s. I mean, it was a long time ago. But there was an article written about him, and he always wore a uniform. He wore a military uniform. And he was asked about that. You're the Surgeon General, you're a doctor. Why do you wear a uniform? And he says, well, I'm the Surgeon General. So that just makes sense. He's a general of that. And he said, it just helps me remain focused on what my actual career is. I'm not a doctor now. I'm managing that. So a bigger thing. I'm not really sure what his exact explanation was, but I do remember the point that they questioned him about wearing his uniform. So he was in a uniform. He was a general. And just like the same thing, Pam Bondi now, who's the Attorney General, they call her General.
Do they call all the attorney and surgeon generals General? General
Bondi. I mean, so it's that position. The position is a general position.
It's that title.
It's a military rank, somewhat, perhaps. But that was one. Other things like stories, lifestyle sections, and I haven't been able to find this, but Carl Oh, what was his name? He started Circle K. Carl Karcher, I'm thinking, but that's not his name. But you go through this, what is it called? Where you lose all your money, the hero adventure. You gain success and then you lose it all. And then you have to start building again back from nothing. And there's those stories. Those stories are instrumental on how they refocus their life and reset their business again and move forward. But most billionaires, millionaires, rich, very successful stories have almost lost it all or did lose it all at one point or two or three points in their life and had to refocus and reset. And that's the type of thing you're learning from, is how you refocus your life. I don't have his book. I don't have a book from him, but we do have Benjamin Franklin's book. So that's where we're going to talk about Benjamin Franklin. So all those other stories, and you do find them everywhere, but I think the autobiographies or the biographies that are written about people are useful to relate to your own life. So we should relate this to our own life, is how we're looking at it.
Okay.
So from the way we're reading books or looking at books, is this a history book or is it more a self-help expository record book? That's what my overall thoughts. What are you thinking after reading some of his life?
I think it is both. He includes history as to like what he was involved in and how things go, and like he even included insights into his interactions with other notable people.
Right. And he is going through the issues of the day then as they occur.
And he was kind of a self-help kind of guy. He was a make my life better kind of guy. What can I do to change the world for me and for other people? And so he included that in his autobiography as well, like details, not just a linear progression of time. There was other meat in the book.
I think he described a lot of how he got to those conclusions. He gave his conclusions, but rather than just giving a snippet or a meme or a maxim of his conclusion, he went through how he developed it and what happened, what occurred. We'll talk about a number of those things. Hopefully, we should talk about as many things as impressed us, right?
Right.
Where do you want to start? Where do I want to start? What's the thing he's most famous for? What's the thing most people know about Benjamin Franklin? Let's start with those.
The kite, the electricity, the kite with the key.
That's how you see him. He had a key, and he identified there's some way to harness this power you see out there in the air. And I don't know, did he write in the autobiography about that specifically? I don't remember reading.
Do I remember that?
Stories about that in his autobiography. You do know, because that's what everyone knows about him is, those are the famous pictures.
Right. It's included in the appendix of the book. Instructions on how to make an electrical kite.
Okay. Did he write that or?
Yeah, it's signed Benjamin Franklin. It was a letter to Peter Collinson in October of 1752. I don't know who Peter Collinson is, but apparently somebody that would be interested in an electric kite.
And not someone that was important enough in his own right to have an autobiography written about him, perhaps.
Maybe there is stories written about him too. So it is mentioned at the end. I think maybe that's the only place we even know about the kite. I don't know if it would be written anywhere else except right here.
Was that instrumental? I mean, do we learn anything from that?
In this appendix?
From that story? Does he say anything interesting there? I mean, you're looking at it here. Anything interesting pop out that we could relate to us?
On the surface of it, no. But as I'm sure if Sam Harris took a look at this, he could turn it philosophical.
Okay. You just don't feel like doing it now. That's okay. So it's just a description of how he did it, how to do. Could we do that today?
Yeah, it's just one paragraph long even. Yeah, we could do it today.
If you fly a kite in the rain, you can attract lightning?
Yep. It's saying that he conducted this experiment and succeeded with it in Philadelphia. I mean, is the air different in Philadelphia than it is here?
No. Nowhere on the earth is the air different. So Yeah, it's all the same air that
Okay.
blows around. So it's going to be fine. But does it attract a lightning bolt, or did it just cause how did he know that there was electricity conducted? An electric kite.
You will find electric fire stream out plentifully from the key on the approach of your knuckle.
So it's static electricity. Is that right? So you put the key so that you can reach it with your hand. And as you go there,
You should be able to
you get
feel
the
it.
shocks. You can create static electricity just from the fact that there's electricity moving through the air. That that makes more sense. So he wasn't trying to attract a lightning bolt.
Right. He was collecting electrons and neutrons and protons or whatever from the air down this silk string.
In the air, he could find that, and on the key, you touch the key and it will shock. It's a static electricity type thing. Rub a balloon on the wall or your hair, and it's developed static electricity, but just out of the air. So he was hypothesizing that, improved it, and identified it that way. That yeah, we can harness this, we can capture it, and it does create this shock. That's the first time I've heard that. It's between his knuckles and the key.
It would be fun to conduct one experiment just like this. It does give detailed instructions, like don't let the string touch the corners of the edges of the doorway or window that
Yeah, don't let it ground out.
you're under. You're protected, but the kite is outside. You do have to find some way to get the kite up into the air while you're inside.
You don't stand out in the rain. He said you do it from inside.
No, you do it from inside. You protect yourself.
So under a gondola or something, under a cover.
This kite is to be raised when a thunder gust appears to be coming on, and the person who holds the string must stand within a door or window or under some cover, so that there's a silk ribbon down closer to you that should not get wet, and care must be taken that the twine does not touch the frame of the door or the window. So it's got to be a pretty windy, thundery day. I've got too many trees and electric lines and stuff around my house. I wouldn't be able to do it in my exact location.
You need to go out to can't get wet.
We can construct a shanty, just something we can transport on a trailer to put out in the middle of a field to sit under.
Or from inside your tent. Well, that's interesting. We learned more about that.
It's right here. I wonder how many people know of that more than other things they might know about Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, what other things do they know? We know he was an inventor. Bifocals is a big thing. So he was interested in how to see, or the refractory lenses, and said we can put two lenses together and just split it up right here. He invented that. Was it the pipe? No. What else did he invent? He was an inventor,
The
though.
wood stove. He invented the wood stove.
Yeah, the way to connect that inside instead of a fireplace, so you enclose your fire. But he was a thinker. That's an inventor. As he came up with an issue that he wanted to solve some way, he figured out ways to solve it. And most of his stories, most of what he talks about is along that same line. He was always asking questions of how could this be done better, or what else is needed here, and let's do something. So I think in general, that's why I kind of frame this as an expository work more than a history. He's teaching how he has done all these things. And in every story, he's not just telling the story. It's not a diary. It's not a diary of his life. It's an exposition of his life. And this is what I'm teaching based on. He's teaching in everything he writes.
Yeah, it's illuminating and inspiring to see where he started and everything that he went through to become who he was in the end, who he was in the end. What were his involvements in politics in the founding of the country?
Well, he was in his 80s or 80s then, I think. How old? He was old. When was he born? Can we identify his
He was born in 1706.
age? 1706. So he was 70 years old, 1776. So 70s, and then I think he went to France in his 80s. I don't know, when did he die? How long did he live at that time?
1790, so he's 84.
84. Okay.
80. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. 84.
Am I
Let's
mathing
say that.
correct?
He was in his 80s. In his 70s, when the country was formed, when he performed his major political work, and maybe that wasn't his major work, that was just he was involved and very involved in that process. But he was in his 70s. We're having questions now about President Trump being 74, 76 or something.
And people think that he's too senile to do anything.
Right. And 200 years ago, people died in their 50s and 60s. Benjamin Franklin was way older than most people at the time. So the life expectancy was about 60 or 65 during that time. And he was 80. And he did that. And that's another reason that this, I think, is the exposition, the idea that he taught us how to live that long. And what were some of the clues you get on how he identified his longevity? I've got a few ideas. Do you have any ideas from what you read?
Not off the top of my head. Tell me.
Oh, come on.
Tell me what you know.
Any thoughts of how he lived so well?
I didn't read this book this morning, so you're going to really
You
have
read it
to.
a while ago, and you didn't keep notes in front of it?
Well, I have it only in, like, the Project Gutenberg, the Gutenberg Project has it online, so it's difficult to take notes on a website.
And that's the other reason of having a book. You get a book in front of you, you can write it and you can say page 64. So I'm going to page 64. This is a big health segment. So let's just read through this. Here's the first point I found on this page. I found myself obliged to comply and pay the money. So he was talking about property taxes. So as he came up with an issue, he talked about the issue of the day, talk about property taxes and that they should pay. So he said, I found myself obliged to pay the money, convinced of the folly of being on ill terms with those one is to live with continually. So even though you have maybe a disposition not to pay property taxes, not to pay taxes on something you already own. So the property tax came up, but it was to help other people in the area, is to help the whole system operate. So he said, it would be folly for me to go against something that benefits the whole of society, something like that. Even if you're not using or benefiting from the tax, participation is friendly and keeps others with you.
Obliged, though.
That's what I wrote. Yeah, obliged. You're required to pay the tax. It's a tax on you. And you're not benefiting from it. It doesn't benefit you, but it benefits the neighbors 3 doors down that aren't near as think-oriented as you are. They're not trying to build their lives better. They're just trying to survive.
So that's kind of like socialism, right? Paying the taxes because you know that your neighbors need it.
And is socialism bad? Socialism, there's not necessarily all bad or all good in anything. So a good part of socialism, and he only points out what he determined, so this is just the way he thinks. He said, I'm fundamentally opposed to paying a tax for other people's misdeeds, perhaps, but I have to live with them in the community. And if I'm going to get along with them, I'm going to go ahead and pay that offering of tax, even obligated, so that they can have what they need to survive, even though they're not willing to work. So something like that line. And then he says, and I'm getting to the point of health. He says, I was on a fair footing with them and soon acquired considerable influence. So you get to be a fair footing and then you can help persuade. He said, I proposed some reasonable alterations to their chapel laws. And chapel, I'm not sure what that means. So he became using his influence to adjust things a little more favorably to everyone, I guess, and carried them against all opposition. So he actually succeeded. And I do want to talk about that too, how he carried them against opposition. That's another big thing in his life. He would enter arguments, but not as arguments. He would enter them as the opportunity to persuade, more persuasive arguments. And he would carry the arguments. And there's a reason that he won most of the time. And he identified that a little later here. It was about writing, about how he wrote and why we have his words here. From my example, a great part of them left their muddling breakfast. So from my example, he persuaded them, he exampled, their muddling breakfast of beer and bread and cheese, finding they could, with me, be supplied from a neighboring house with a large porringer of hot water gruel, sprinkled with pepper, crumbled with bread, and a bit of butter in it, for the price of a pint of beer. So he said he talked them into, have breakfast with me. Come over. Let's talk about this. And a porringer. What do you think a porringer is?
Foreigner, I bet, is a pot. A
A bowl,
it's
but
I have it up on my internet on my browser, so I can easily search anything you want. A porringer is a small bowl, typically with a handle, used for soup, stew, or similar dishes.
okay. Of hot water gruel, what do you expect gruel is? See what
Cream
you
of wheat.
cream of wheat type thing
I always
or cream of
imagined it would
rice.
be cream of wheat, but they would say grits or
Well, grits is, I've tried that too. And since of course in our health, he's thinking about health and he's saying, don't start your day with beer. Actually, don't drink at all. Is what he was a teetotaler also, but he said, let's start working on this. And he convinced a number of them to start your day this way. But this is the way I make cream of wheat. I use bread. I don't use pepper, but I use butter and sugar. He didn't mention the sugar. Sugar is what makes it really good. You're not supposed to use sugar, and he's better if you don't use sugar.
yeah, many people do have cream of wheat the savory way, where they don't put sweet things in it. They don't put sugar or anything. They put eggs, they put pepper and salt and butter and, like little vegetable thing like spinach. You could put spinach in it and bacon bits. I mean, that is kind of sweet, but it's also very salty.
And that's the cream of wheat. Gruel, what it says, is just a thinly cooked cereal, often made from oats or other grains, boiled milk or water. So it's anything you do that. So grits is that way too. You put cheese in it. They do all kinds of things with these small or ground up grains.
Right. Anyway, so the point is that's healthier.
That's healthier. So he was promoting a healthy lifestyle. And he said this was a more comfortable as well as a cheaper breakfast and kept their heads clearer. So he said he wanted to benefit the whole community. Let's not get drunk first thing in the morning. Let's enjoy life a little more. Those who continued sodding on beer all day were often, by not paying, out of credit at the alehouse and used to making interest with me to get beer. They're light, as they phrased it, being out of money. So they would spend all their money on that higher priced beverage that was addicting them to it. So they had to keep paying. So that's it.
All right. So he's got that opinion that drinking is bad for your wallet and bad for your health.
I put on here, he wrote something a little bit later. He never had hangover or sick day. Here's what see if this what is. It meant that to me. It says, this and my being esteemed a pretty good rigite, that is a jocular verbal satirist. So a good writer. He could write funny things, I guess. Supported my consequence in society. So his being a writer supported him, and he talks about that too. He says they respected him a little bit more. My constant attendance, parenthetically right there, I never making a Saint Monday. So my constant attendance, I never making a Saint Monday, recommended me to the master, and my uncommon quickness at composing occasionally occasioned my being put upon all work of dispatch, which was generally better paid. So I went on now very agreeably. So this is how he said I gained success. He was put on every work of dispatch because he was quick. He was able to think quickly and respond. But I never making a Saint Monday. That meant to me he never had a sick day or a hangover.
Yeah, the footnote here on my version says Saint Monday would be just a made up holiday that just prolongs the weekend, right? It is kind of a hangover day. You were partying all weekend and now you need to take Monday too off of work to just recover,
And maybe that was common in the day that, I can't come in today. I've got to recover. So since he didn't, he's constantly attendant to the good life. So he didn't have to have those sick days, those recovery days. So yeah, the footnote agreed with what I thought as I was reading that.
Right. People these days just take Friday off. They're like, I'm going to take an early weekend instead of prolonging the weekend through Monday. Like, it seems like it's more common to skip Friday than it would be to skip Monday.
It's less acceptable in today's society to not show up on Monday. Maybe it was okay back then, but they said, there's enough of this. You got to be here Monday morning. Work days start Monday, 8 a.m. You're here. And so that got into society. And now Fridays, if you can get your work done in 4 days, 4 10s, let's work 4 10s. And every Friday's off.
Right.
Let's talk about the writing real quick now in another location. I'm not even sure how to connect this to where you're at. He talks about how that's valuable. I wrote a printed anonymous pamphlet on it entitled The Nature and Necessity of a Paper Currency. He was talking about paper currencies. There was going to be a currency brought out, which was, Newcastle paper money was one that came out after this, but the benefits of paper money. And he said it was well received by common people in the general, but the rich men disliked it, for it increased and strengthened the clamor for more money. And they happened to have no writers among them that were able to answer it and their opposition slackened. And the point was carried by the majority of the House. So because they didn't have writers communicate in public, the general narrative went towards those who could write. Let me just continue here, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. My friends there, who conceived I had been of the same service, thought fit to reward me by employing me in printing the money. Very profitable job and great help to me. That was another advantage gained by my being able to write. So he was able to promote the facts that would benefit his business, but also bring the society along in the right direction as he determined it. Then he talks about the paper currency, and that's not necessarily important. Small things. So he's talking about this, and he's saying, in my job, I then thought small things appeared great to those in small circumstances. So he was identifying he was in a small circumstance at the time. And this was a small thing that he was asked to print the money, but that seemed great to him in a small circumstance. And these to me were really great advantages as they were great encouragements. So I look at that encouragements. He talks about motivation. They encouraged him to continue. He was motivated by those things. And I think he was concurrently thinking about that at the same time. He says, I'm causing this. The House approved it because I was able to write convincingly enough, and there was no one able to write against me contrary. They weren't very smart on the other side of the political aisle.
They weren't able to write against me. Yeah.
Right. To articulate their position coherently. And we had there was a recent lawsuit that Trump won against CBS or NBC or somebody because they doctored Kamala's interview to piece it together to make it sound like it's more coherent than it really came out. And he won it. It was like a $60 million suit or something that they had to pay because they knowingly put out information that was not what she had said. And so they're trying to use their writing, but you've got to write correctly also.
And honestly.
For a number of years, he talks about, there's the story there, and whether you believe that the media is, what does he call them? What does Trump call the media?
I don't know. I don't follow it as close as you do, so.
You don't watch it all the time.
No. Is it something like crooked?
Yeah, it's something like crooked, liars, whatever his term is. They've succeeded for many years spinning or slanting the news the way that they want to progress it, to push it. And he's just identifying, we know that the news has been slanted for these number of years, and you got to stop slanting it. The fake news, that's what he calls them, the fake news.
Oh, right. Fake news.
They slant it to the fake side and saying, this is what we want you to hear from what was said by Kamala Harris in her answer, rather than what she actually said and rambled on about. And so being able to write or being able to speak is a very important skill.
How did he get that skill? What is his example for how to get that skill?
What did he say about it? Writing. What did he say about that? He said a lot. I think everything he said was about it.
Everything, his whole life led to him being able to read and write.
Maybe asking a question or recognizing it. Just in that little thing about the currency, he recognized there was no one writing against him on the other side that was of any importance. Nothing came up to his caliber of communication. So you recognize it, you just identify. And he did start writing under a pen name to start. What was his pen name?
He had a few pen names, but one that is pretty well known is Silence Do-Good.
Which I haven't ever heard of, so.
You haven't. That was in the National Treasure movie series. The first book they talked about, they were trying to find the treasure under some cathedral in DC or Virginia or something. Anyway, the Silence Do Good letters is what they had to track down to get a clue
Okay.
on the treasure hunt.
And those were written by Benjamin Franklin.
Those are Benjamin Franklin. He wrote under that pseudonym, which is supposed to be a middle-aged widow, to be published in his brother's newspaper, because his brother's contemporaries didn't want Benjamin Franklin writing in the newspaper. So he started writing under a pseudonym and still got published.
And that's probably an excellent thing from what you asked. How did he learn how to write? He just started writing and wrote from different perspectives. He says, let's write as though I'm a middle-aged woman.
He was an avid reader from a very young age. Like he recounts that he would go without food in order so that he could purchase books, and he would practice writing. He'd practice writing by imitating essays. What? Fake it until you make it. That's what I'm trying to say. He faked it so much that he made it.
And he thought about it all the time. He worked on it. He actually spent effort trying to write better, trying to make his point or state what he had to say.
Do you think if they had Nintendos and PlayStations back then, would he still have followed this path to being a writer and an inventor and a philosopher? And
what do you think? Because they did have PlayStations, but it was called a pint of beer, and that's what everyone worked with it. And he determined early that that's not what I want to do. I don't want to be dulled by that activity. So I think he would have seen it as a dulling activity. So yes, I think he would have played. I don't know. Do you play PlayStations? How do you
a little bit.
You do a little bit.
I don't often have time to do it, but I could have time if I didn't place priority on many other things.
If you didn't have some higher value, and you do have a higher value than that, you develop values that are more than just the beer of the day, the whatever it is, the enjoyment. I've played enough games in my life.
You don't need to play anymore.
I started with Pong, and I had the Pong in the 70s and saw that, that it was something you bounce that ball back and forth. And everything that came out, Mario Kart, played Mario Kart for a little bit. I've never got into Minecraft. I've never done Minecraft.
Never, not once.
And I have no need to learn or to try. I've never once built a world. I've watched a lot of people build world. My kids, as they have all focused on it. You guys are still building Minecraft worlds, right?
Yeah. I even teach a class in our homeschool co-op around Minecraft.
On that important topic. I've never done it, and I probably never will. It's just not a thing that I think is going to advance anything.
Not for you.
I may be
right?
wrong, and I may be right. Who knows?
We may be crazy.
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times, though. So Minecraft is still in my language. It's in my world, but it's just not something I dedicate time to.
From what I recall, you are kind of a puzzle video game kind of guy, particularly Tetris. And
I did play Tetris for quite a while and tried to gain expertise at that skill, and I would track my progress, but I got finished tracking my progress. I haven't played Tetris.
You lost interest in it.
And I don't want to necessarily, I got good enough that I said, it's like playing solitaire, something, there's always intrigue in it. And there's intrigue in getting the Tetris to fall right and see how high you can get the score. But the game would have to score a higher score. And then they have these iterations of it, Tetris with different things. But I don't want to have to dive in. That's not where I want to take my deep dives. I am disposed to take deep dives, but I'm not going to do it in games or things like that anymore. I don't need to.
That there was a time and a season for that, and maybe it wasn't exactly the time or season for it, but it came into your life and you had it, and then it left your life.
But even there, maybe like Benjamin Franklin, I thought about it as I was doing it, and I used it for a specific purpose. I used it to see if I could, and I tracked my progress on it. He talks about the scorecard he made on virtues, and we'll talk about virtues. I want to talk about virtues after we talk about the junto, though.
Okay.
You know those two things. Are you aware of the junto? Do you know what it represents?
If it's in the book, I'm aware of it.
Okay, and you'll find it in just a second. It, but it relates to his early education, early learning, his love of books, love of gaining knowledge through reading. So he did that, and he said it would be better. How did he put it? I guess I'm just going to read this paragraph about how he put it out, because it's how he started it. Our club, the junto, that's Junto, was found so useful and afforded such satisfaction to the members that some were desirous of introducing their friends. He's just talking about how they decided to keep it secret there. But he talks about it quite often. It was a club. I don't know where he really describes what he started it for. Do you recall what he started it for?
It's a club of mutual improvement. Just getting people together, people of his same mindset.
Contemporaries, it's the concept of the 5 people you hang out with most are the ones you're going to be most like.
And when I read about this club, I really wanted to start one or join one or something, but it does seem like the way it was run was a bit intensive, is what it felt like. Like, this is your hobby, being in the junto, right?
And it's important why they don't exist nowadays. And do they exist? That would be the question I had as I was reading about it. It says, where was this idea used, and what is it developed into? Do you have any thoughts on that? What it was developed into?
What it was developed into? Like, after a time it became something?
Certainly he wrote about it. People were reading this in the 1700s and 1800s and 1900s as they read his autobiography. What's happened because of it? Let me see if I can find one of the reasons he didn't want it to grow. He didn't grow at a club so that it could have a commercial aspect in his life. He said that wasn't the use of it. The use of it was like you said, a private society, a small group of men. I'm going to go ahead and read this because now it talks about why there weren't more clubs. Could not be done well without exceeding what we had settled, a convenient number as in 12. So he said 12 would be about the size of the group.
Okay.
We had from the beginning made it a rule to keep our institution a secret, which was pretty well observed. The intention was to avoid applications of improper persons for admittance, some of whom perhaps we might find it difficult to refuse.
Yeah, improper people, but people that if they had asked to join, you'd be like, all right, okay, yeah, you can join.
Yeah, because it would be hard to refuse them, Of course, you're in the parliament. You're the kingly
You're
route.
the president of the United States. Okay, fine, you can join our club.
But or you're the mayor of the town. Naturally, the mayor's in the club, except the mayor's not in the club naturally.
This is, of course, before there was a president of the United States. But
right,
yeah, you're the mayor. You're the president of Pennsylvania. You're whatever,
Or you own the winery, and so you're the richest guy in town. Naturally, you're going to come into the club, but then he's going to push things inappropriately or whatever. We're writing a proposal that every member separately should endeavor to form a subordinate club with the same rules respecting queries, etc. So the same secrecy rules, and without informing them of the connection with the junto. So if you want to expand this concept, go out and expand it on your own, but let it be a secret with those 12 people. And then talk about that. If they decide to expand, use the same concept to let it be done kind of like that. Give your alms in secret, and the God who sees in secret will reward thee openly. That part of the Sermon on the Mount that Christ gave. It's this concept is keep it quiet, work with your 12 people, and the reward's going to happen. And you're not necessarily looking for a reward other than what you can gain inside that. Where did they meet? I don't have a specific quote about that.
I don't think that it really says where they met, but it says they did meet on Friday nights, which would be drinking night, right? He was keeping his friends away from
the saloons.
Right. I would imagine it was just in somebody's house or whatever, but it's definitely not at the bar or whatever. They were meeting somewhere respectable.
It was typical. Well, it was in the library, their library, though. It was a private.
Well, yeah,
They had their books with them.
wasn't the library it had to have been all held at some one person's place, though.
Right. This was before Benjamin Franklin, I believe, invented the public library.
Yeah, that's another one of his most amazing inventions.
Yeah,
Right.
that he brought that into being because he said this is necessary to have books that people can borrow, because that's what the junto started at. It was a private library, and they were joining with each other to participate in that. And what was the thing? Something. First, they were reading things to each other. They identified, oh, it was in this other statement. Where before the paper money came out, he said, we had discussed this point in our junto, or I was on the side of the addition, being persuaded that the first small sum struck something. So it gives you a place to discuss policy and positions, and also to read and to find, where is it about, that they read it first in the junto. That's where you do your learning. That's where we hold these discussions. This discussion between you and I is just a junto discussion. It's the great conversation that was promoted by Adler. I think that's where he got some of that mindset, is you have to join in that conversation with somebody.
The word junto is
Spanish.
It says in this footnote, it's a Spanish term meaning a combination for political intrigue. Here, a club or society.
Well, it just means together. Juntos is together.
But like if you're using it as a noun.
As a noun, a junto is a common, you're bringing together thoughts, ideas.
A combination. Is it a secret? It's a secret combination is what it is.
There we go.
In this case.
Yeah, that wasn't a part of our society at that time. No, it was. Secret combinations. This is 1776. The Book of Mormon was brought out in 1830. So, yeah, 1827. So, yeah, it was before the standard Book of Mormon secret combination. So maybe this secret combination was introduced based on that.
Based on the junto, right?
On the junto being a secret combination.
Yeah. So right here where he lays out like the rules of the junto, I do just want to read that out because I thought it was kind of neat. The rules that I drew up required that every member in his turn should produce one or more queries on any point of morals, politics, or natural philosophy to be discussed by the company.
You have to have questions. You can't join this junto unless you have questions. Is that right?
You have to be a participating member. You can't just be a sit in the corner and watch member.
Yeah, it's not a club you join. It's a responsibility you join to come with questions, and then you have to come with questions the group can discuss. We're building something here.
And he goes on, and once in 3 months, produce and read an essay of his own writing on any subject he pleased.
Okay, so that's part of how you become a writer, is you have to produce and present it.
Yeah, so it is literally a club of mutual improvement. You're improving together. It's not a club of entertainment or a club of leisure. It's a club of mutual improvement, which I really, really like. I love that idea. And I've never really been a part of a club like that. I've been part of discussions and whatever.
Discussion groups, colloquiums. You've been a part of colloquiums where you get together to discuss one subject.
Yeah, which is the one time I did that, I hated it because there was a monopoly of one person was in charge of the colloquium.
Yeah, so it was more of a lecture than a discussion, more than an open discussion, more of a lecture. So it's the way it was presented.
And it's probably somewhat my fault as well because I didn't prepare. I think at that time, in that particular time, I didn't find myself with enough free time to prepare accordingly.
That's the same concept as this, though. The junto, if it were operated correctly, would be so everyone could learn and grow together on the topic, on the query. How did he say it? You bring a query that the group can discuss.
One or more queries on any point of morals, politics, or natural philosophy.
Doesn't really matter what you come, but come with something. And how often was that done? How often were the queries brought up?
Well, it says they met on Friday evenings, so I'm guessing weekly.
Every time, and you'd have one or more queries. One person would have the query discussion point then that night.
Yeah, it should in his turn produce one or more queries. So they probably rotated. Maybe if they had 12 members, you got one every 3 months.
Well, one every night or maybe three. But you said every 3 months you present an essay. So you have 12 of them every 3 months. There's going to be four every month. Yeah, every week. That's right. 12 of them would be every week. Someone else is presenting an essay and presentation. And then maybe every week, one or two of them. I would think two or three would do their questions and have a discussion around those questions, their queries. I had another word that I put here on the side was a fraternity. That this is kind of a fraternal or sorority type order, that you're gaining some close association with this number of people.
So it does say at the end of this paragraph where he's describing the rules for it, it says, to prevent warmth, all expressions of positiveness in opinions or direct contradiction were after some time made contraband and prohibited under small pecuniary penalties. So it's fraternity feels like everyone's friends and we're all going to agree with each other. But I think this was more leaning toward we're going to find the right thing, whether we like it or not.
And that's kind of, we've talked about councils. It was the first thing of a council where they're going to just talk what they feel is right. Everyone's going to try to find it. They're searching for unity. Now, what do you get from what he's saying? We would penalize it or make it what word did he use there? He's using words we don't usually speak.
Contraband.
Make it contraband, which means what?
Well, contraband more recently is
illegal substances.
It signals an allegiance with a group like a gang or a people who do use illegal substances or something like that. It's related to illegal stuff.
So contextually, what does it mean in the way he's using it?
If you've got a positiveness of opinion or direct contradiction, then you're prohibited from having that.
That doesn't make sense.
It's something you can't have anymore. What?
I don't think that's what he said.
Okay.
Something you can't have anymore. I read the context again of what that said. I don't have it in front of me.
All expressions of positiveness in opinions or direct contradiction were after some time made contraband.
All expressions of positiveness?
Positiveness in opinions or direct contradiction.
Make sense of that for yourself. Tell me in your own words. Simplify it.
I think it just means that it's made something that you can't have. You can't have that anymore. It's illegal to have a positive opinion or a direct contradiction to something. It's
what does that mean to you though? What's a positive opinion? And how can you go to somewhere and not have it if you have it? If it's you, how can you not be you?
I think it's more that you need to leave all of your prejudgments aside. Let them all fall away and open your mind to the actual discussion instead of what you think about the discussion. The topic is meant to be looked at nakedly. And so if you come in with your predetermined opinions on something, then that's a contraband. You're not allowed to hold that predetermined opinion, whether positive or contradictory.
Okay, and then how he treated it was in the next sentence. How do you treat that?
It's prohibited under small pecuniary penalties.
Okay, so you have to pay. So you have a direct contradiction to what he just said. So for $1, we'll let you give your statement.
It's prohibited though, not allowed under penalties. It's prohibited, and also you have to pay.
Okay, you pay. So pecuniary, it's a penalty after the fact, after you've stated something that was against the rules. So that just means you have to find a creative way to say what you want to say within the discussion. So you can't just say you're wrong. You're wrong. That's not an appropriate response. But I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying from 7 Habits. I understand this, and this is what I understand about it. And here's a different perspective that I have on that if you'd allow me to voice this. And so you voice your different perspective, and then that just becomes part of the greater discussion, but as a perspective rather than saying, you're wrong, I'm right, so shut up.
Right. So right before, in this same sentence, right before this prevent warmth area statement, it says, our debates were to be conducted in the sincere spirit of inquiry after truth, without fondness for dispute or desire of victory.
Right. Okay, and that's what I think in the common idea of a council. If you're going to counsel together to try to find unity, you're trying to find the truth. You're trying to find an answer as opposed to, I won that agreement, that debate. It's not a debate. It's an inquiry, a general inquiry, a general discussion. You know, we talk about discussions, but you said like the colloquium you're at that it was overruled by somebody. It became a lecture. They don't want these things to become lectures.
You bring to the club a question of morals, politics, or natural philosophy, and you leave your prejudgments outside of the door.
You're trying to identify what is the truth. Did you use truth or best? What?
Yeah, sincere spirit of inquiry after truth.
Inquiry after truth. So looking for, and truth. Did we talk a little bit about this? What true means? Truth means? What are we looking for? And we didn't when we had our discussion about truth. I've developed a new idea after that of what true actually means. True is objective truth. And this is what I think he's searching for. He's not searching for an objective truth. You know, as soon as we find it, then we get to stop talking about that because we found it. It's done. Now that discussion, we can't talk about money anymore because we found the truth about money. So nothing else to discuss. But that's not the objective truth you're looking for. The truth is the alignment. How can we all align to the truth? It's the alignment to truth. I think truth means more alignment than it means something, a circumstance, or a physical something. If you're true to something, you're aligned with it. True to the faith, true to your convictions, true to your values. You're aligned with them. You're aligned with something. And so what we're seeing is, let's discuss this to see how we align it with everything else that we believe is accurate. Let's align everything. Let's align everything. I think aligning is the word I would replace with truth. So stay the sentence again. What did it say?
Using align after, in the spirit of inquiry after alignment.
Inquiry after alignment. We want to after truth, inquiry after truth. But the truth meaning alignment. We're not necessarily going to say all these, we're not looking for the falsehoods of anything. And that's kind of what he's saying. We don't worry about oppositions or someone who says this is the truth, everything else is not. We're going to align it. We're going to see how it aligns with everything. And it's going to align with everything. So you're trying to align things as opposed to just identifying this is the fact. I think that works. And then with that, you're not allowed an opinion that says, I know the truth. You have to say, let's discuss it. Let's be open. Truth from your perspective. And you have to include perspective in everything, because from that perspective, this is true. And from this perspective, it definitely is not true. It's not aligned from this perspective. How do we talk about that subject from this perspective and align it still? If it's, how do you make it true from here? So it keeps the discussion open. I love that. The essays, where you're required every 3 months to come up with an essay to discuss in depth on something and present that to the group. So you are practicing, you're working on your writing, you're working on your delivery. What's the group nowadays that does that? Speechcraft or Speech Masters? No, what's it called? Toastmasters.
Yeah, Toastmasters.
It's a group that does that specifically. It says, write a story, write this, and then we're going to discuss it. We're going to give it you're going to present it to the group, and we'll talk about it. We will discuss how you can become a better writer. So that's what they did. So Toastmasters took that specific idea and decided, let's grow it. Let's grow that. And it did. I think it grew out of this type, probably from this concept. And someone decided how to monetize it and make it a group and make it continuous. I'm going to propose another group that came out of this Junto concept. I'll do it by reading a little bit more where I said the fraternity. And this probably is the same place you were reading a little bit. It talks about the Society of the Free and Easy. Do you see that anywhere?
Where I was reading is toward the middle, well, the second or third page in chapter 7.
Let's see. And I'm not sure where I'm at even because I don't have the same chapters. I mean, this is something that's published all over the place.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, the chapter 7 is called Beginning Business in Philadelphia.
Okay.
That's where I was. But you're somewhere after that or before that, you think?
Beginning public employment is what I'm on
Okay.
in
Okay.
that area. But anyway, he says the ideas at the time that the sect should be begun and spread at the first among young and single men only. So this junto, the concepts, the project he had in mind. But he was talking about having it expand in that, but young men. He's trying to grow this junto idea, the fraternity in the youth. That each person to be initiated should not only declare his assent to such creeds, he was working out the creeds that would be part of it. And maybe you could find that because he talks about there is one God who made all things, that he governs the world by his providence. That he says this is a creed that's not a religious creed. It's a creed that what you're aligning to maybe, perhaps, where you find the truth, that the soul is immortal, that God will certainly reward virtue and punish vice, either here or hereafter. So you're seeking for the true way to live. Not only declare such creed, but should have exercised himself within a 13 weeks examination and practice of virtues, as in the before mentioned model. So there's a virtue model. They need to be of a sort that they're willing to work on themselves.
Yeah. And I see that you are reading that in chapter 9. Plan for Attaining Moral Perfection is what it's titled in this.
Okay.
In this chapter. He talks about the 13 virtues in this area too.
Yeah, so it's right after he talks about the virtues. Then he's saying, let's make this something that we can do, and it's best if we do it in young men. That the members should engage and afford their advice, assistance, and support to each other in promoting one another's interests, business, and advancement in life. So he said that for distinction we should be called the Society of the Free and Easy. Free as being by the general practice of habits of the virtues, general practice of the habits of the virtues, free from the dominion of vice, and particularly by the practice of industry and frugality, free from debt, which exposes a man to constraint and a species of slavery to his creditors. So the free society is someone that's free from vice and free from debt. This is as much as I can now recollect of the project, because he never got the project off the ground. He never moved it beyond that point, except that I communicated in part to 2 young men who adopted it with some enthusiasm, but my then narrow circumstances and necessity I was under of sticking close to my business occasioned my postponing the further prosecution of it at the time, and my multifarious occupations, public and private, induced me to continue postponing, so that it has been omitted till I have no longer strength or activity left sufficient for the enterprise, such an enterprise. So he still had these ideas that he was working on. I believe someone picked that up and moved it into fruition in activity and actually made something out of it. And his name was William Boyce. I think it was William.
William what?
Boyce, B-O-Y-C-E. Let's see what his first name was.
Okay.
William D. Boyce, yes. He's the one that met Baden-Powell in England and decided to bring the Boy Scouts of America to the United States.
Oh, so you believe the Boy Scouts of America came from this Society of Free and Easy?
Because he understood, because he knew the prospect and he read this and he understood, yeah, this is what we should do. And Baden-Powell has an excellent program that we can inculcate with this and bring the youth of America to these values and virtues, to the points of the Scout Law and the Scout Oath and the motto.
So William Boyce was the same age as Benjamin Franklin. He was just a few years younger.
Died June 11th of 1929. No, he was 100 years later. William Boyce.
Wait a minute. Am I looking at the right one? No, I'm looking at a different one. There's William Boyce, a composer.
Yeah, this is William Boyce, Boy Scouts of America. Tie that to his name.
Okay, I see. So he was born 1858. He was born ages after.
100 years later. And so he had plenty of time to study this his whole life and start the Boy Scouts of America based on his desire to run this program to the youth of America. And he called it Boy Scouts. And I don't know of anywhere in all my working with Boy Scouts, and we did spend quite a number of years in that organization. I don't recall ever anyone saying that, yeah, this came from partly from Franklin's. He was never credited with it, but I'm going to credit it to this understanding.
You see a relationship there.
I see a connection.
Possibly was there.
Yeah. If you want to create this type of organization, the place to do it, and the Boy Scouts of America is also not a religious organization, but they have a definite belief and alignment with God and true principles and all of that, virtues and character. It's naturally what came out of, and presuming that there is a God over the world, it's the same concept that was given to Benjamin Franklin, that was given to Baden-Powell, that was given to William Boyce. That same concept. Let's have the youth grow up with this. And the same one that was given to Joseph Smith, I guess, with the Aaronic priesthood. And let's organize the priesthood in this manner, with the young men taking responsibilities. Well, that's that.
That's that. Okay. So should we get on to the 13 virtues?
We should, now that we've discussed it a few times, and how he came up with them. My first understanding of how he did it is he was on ships back and forth. No, and maybe it was back and forth across the Atlantic in his early life. And those were 22-day journeys. Took him a month on a boat to get across the Atlantic. And that's when he pieced these things together. He would just have time thinking, and he would think the whole time. Kind of what I do on car rides if I have to drive somewhere. I let the car drive and I sit there and think. But he was on a boat, he was on a ship, and so you're on a voyage, a journey that takes forever to get across. And he had time to ponder on these items. So where do you want to start in regard to his pondering? It starts with religion, though.
The chapter title here, for me, is The Plan for Attaining Moral Perfection.
Okay. Let me see if I can just find that title. I do have what the book is, and I don't know if the titles, I don't see the titles in here. This is just a straight.
Okay. It would be here on the Gutenberg Project page, chapter 9.
So I'm going to where I'm talking in front of where he lists them.
It says here, if I had the ability to mark this, I would have marked this. As I knew or thought I knew what was right and wrong, I did not see why I might not always do the one and avoid the other. I did not see why I might not always do the one and avoid the other, but why is something right? Why is something wrong, you know?
And if I could determine there's a right, why would I not just do the right?
Right.
And not do the other?
It says, while my care was employed in guarding against one fault, I was often surprised by another. Habit took the advantage of inattention. Inclination was sometimes too strong for reason.
Imitation. Is that what he said?
Inclination.
Inclination was too strong for reason.
I'm inclined to do something. Yeah.
And that's why you can't trust your will. You can't do things by willpower. Inclination is too strong for reason. You can't reason your willpower to stop an inclination, to develop a habit. So he said that. He recognized that early in life then.
Yeah, he did. And it says here in his quest for these virtues, to identify the virtues, he says, in the various enumerations of the moral virtues I had met within my reading, I found the catalog more or less numerous, as different writers included more or fewer ideas under the same name. So he condensed it down to these 13 based on what he had read in all of his autobiographies and biographies that he was reading in his time.
And he had 12 that he rolled it down to.
No, 13.
I mentioned this. There is 13 now. He had 12. So I want to read this paragraph that I like about the 13th.
All right.
Yeah. So he had 12 that he composed, and he was working with those for a while. And he said in this paragraph, my list of virtues contained at first but 12. But a Quaker friend, having kindly informed me that I was generally thought proud, that my pride showed itself frequently in conversation, that I was not content with being in the right when discussing any point, not content that I was not content with being in the right when discussing any point, but was overbearing and rather insolent, of which he convinced me by mentioning several instances. So you're
Huh.
running over everybody. I determined to endeavor to cure myself. So using that same philosophy, my inclination is to be overbearing and to know that what I know is right. If I could, to cure myself, if I could, of this vice or folly among the rest. And I added humility to my list, giving a sense of meaning to the word.
Okay, so the humility was of his own invention.
Yeah, he brought that up after everything he read. So he pulled everything together from what he surmised. This is what common characteristics should be used in society. And humility is one that I need to add. Then he said, but I would I thought it was right there too. I would be proud of my humility. Wondered about that because I'd be proud of my humility once I gained it. So that is the challenge of humility if you're trying to gain it.
And then you think you've got it, and so then you're prideful, but then that's a contradiction.
Contradiction of the humility you just gained. What do you mean? Yeah, here's what it is. In reality, there is perhaps not one of our natural passions so hard to subdue as pride. Disguise it, struggle with it, stifle it, mortify it as much as one pleases, it is still alive and will every now and then peep out and show itself. You will see it perhaps often in this history. So he's even saying in my writings, you'll see it all over the place. For even if I could conceive that I might completely overcome it, I should probably be proud of my humility.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That's his description of how he added that humility phrase. But imitate Jesus and Socrates. That's the subtitle to that one.
Okay.
And so I determined from this, that's partly of why, well, I've wanted to read Socrates for a long time, read Plato and the Republic and maybe other things that we've written about Socrates. But you've got to read them before you can emulate them. You've got to understand what it is they said. And in that, I found recently that I found many things that Jesus Christ said exactly what Socrates said 300 years earlier. So I'm not certain that the words that Jesus spoke or that people wrote about what he spoke was not influenced by what Socrates had already been impressed by God to write or think in the first place. Realizing that it's the same God that's influencing everybody, a belief in that. So they're talking about the same things quite often. And even where Socrates has things wrong, he's got them wrong based on his current philosophy or thoughts, which I think his thought was right. He was just describing it incorrectly. Much the same thing that Isaiah couldn't describe things the right way. What we understand today, Socrates didn't understand a lot of those things. So we can describe it differently. We don't have to say that he was just a communist, but Christ was a communist as well, indicating that we're all part of a kingdom. Christ just framed it in the kingdom role as opposed to a political statement. Socrates was talking about politics. But imitating those two people, you have to know about those two people if you're going to imitate them. So I'm certainly studied. You identify who you want to be like. And Benjamin Franklin is one that I would put next to them.
Imitate Jesus, Socrates, and Benjamin Franklin.
And Benjamin Franklin. Right.
And that's how you gain humility, the virtue of humility.
Yeah. Well, that's how he said you keep yourself in check with humility. And maybe part of that, realizing that the great men already lived, the great women already lived before us. We're not that. He wasn't that. Now he is that he's lived, but he wasn't at the time. He was realizing, I'm just a guy trying to run my print shop.
It's interesting to me I think we had mentioned these in one of our previous podcast conversations.
Right. I'm sure we have, because they're a big part of general life. You've got virtues that you're striving for.
Right. So the one interesting thing to me is directly after he lists every virtue with their precepts, he says, my intention being to acquire the habitude of all these virtues. So pretty much they just happen as a rule of habit. They just...
Well, and he was tracking it. He used that calendar to track it. And every time he would he would succeed or fail at it. Did he mark when he failed or when he succeeded? Marked when he failed, when he could identify a failure, I think is what he marked. Is that right?
Yes. Every fault I found upon examination to have been committed.
Right. And so he's trying to end with a clear sheet, and he would focus on one every week or every month. Was it a month or a week?
Every week. A week's strict attention.
To one, but then noting also the others as he became aware of it. He was increasing his awareness and focused on one of them each week, and with the attempt to have the sheet come out clear at the end of the time frame. But he would just identify where he failed.
Do you have, in that book that you have, does it have the chart on there?
Yeah, the charts, I don't see the chart. Is it after or before that? I thought I saw that.
It's after the list of the virtues.
Because I had that exact paragraph right after the list of virtues.
It's two paragraphs after the list of virtues is where it would show up if you had it.
Yeah, well, I saw the chart. I thought it was right there. I've got two books that are differently organized.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the chart, form of the pages.
Yeah. So on this chart that I'm looking at Gutenberg.org, it lists 14 rows, and I don't know what the last one would be. It's labeled with a capital J, like each virtue is a capital letter.
Well, J, does it end with CH and H?
No, it ends with C for chastity, H for humility, and then there's a J. And I don't know what that is for. What is the J for?
Yeah, I don't have that one on this page. Was it maybe juntos that he met? No.
I don't know what that might be for, but it's interesting that there's a 14th row.
Well, how did 14th? And it's not described anywhere in there? The paragraph before or after?
No.
Because it's not in this book, and I don't have anything beyond that. Maybe Gutenberg is just wrong.
Maybe.
It might be an error.
Wrong. Let me look in my Harvard Classics copy of it. I have that in ebook form, so of course I couldn't mark that up either. But
so his general thought, as you're looking for that, is if you can identify a virtue, and you can identify that it would be better to live it than not live it, then it's worth our time and effort to attempt to live it and attempt to not live it. Attempt to live by the positive side of the virtue and not to do the negative side of that virtue. He didn't identify the negative sides of these, though. He's just identifying. No, he did. Isn't that the descriptions of them? Temperance. Eat not to dullness. Drink not to elevation. That's in his description of it. Attempts to identify further the ways he's actually going to accomplish those things.
Right. That's the precept of it is the short precept for temperance. Eat not to dullness. Drink not to elevation. Precept for frugality. Make no expense, but to do good to others or yourself, i.e. waste nothing. I mean, there is that short precept.
Under temperance, he says, drink not to elevation, and maybe there's no need. I mean, what was it? We're going to discuss in a bit, and I've started reading the Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, and he never drank. I don't know if his dad was, his brother was an alcoholic. So he said, I just never got into it. I never did. I just determined it wasn't what I was going to do. So drinking not to elevation, and eating not to dullness too. Gluttony is part of that temperance idea. You just don't need to do that. And so he said, I've found, and it was finding the right things. What was that, the sentence you had? It's got to be right here that I'm just not seeing. I should mark it, about why he's selected these virtues.
I found the catalog of moral virtues, more or less numerous, as different writers included more or fewer ideas under the same name. Was that where we're
Yeah, that's just the sentence
about?
Just before it, right? Okay, I'm seeing where you're reading. So it's just that thought. He used these, wish to live without committing any fault at any time. So there's a determination to live without these faults, or to live in the virtue and without the fault, and it's possible. He determined thought it was possible to habitually try to accomplish it.
Right. Outside of his natural inclinations and his habits he picked up just by living, that inattention.
Yeah, there's a sentence that I wanted to underline there. I knew or thought I knew what was right and wrong. I did not see why I might not always do the one and avoid the other. So if you can identify there's a right and wrong, you should always do what you determine is right and never do what you determine is wrong. So he said, let's work on a process to see if we can do that.
Yeah.
So that's the point of getting to this list. I think he said it was much, he summarized what he was reading everywhere else into these points that he figured were appropriate.
I think it is a good list.
It was his personal list, being that he didn't write it for us. This isn't presented.
But he did put it in his book.
Correct. He wrote it for him, though. That's how he viewed it. And so we talked about that just a couple of weeks ago, that when we were talking about God and how God is, what's the title of that? 8.2 billion gods.
Yeah.
We've got 8.2 billion lists of virtues that we believe are right and wrong. Everyone has their own perspective of where these fall. This is just a good place to start. But what I'm thinking is you have to come up with your own description of what that temperance means. He used eat and drink. We've got other things.
Or decide whether that virtue should appear on your list at all. Just because it's on Ben's list doesn't mean it's on your list.
Yeah, our good friend Ben. He listed it. And so deciding the things, and that's what, in that discussion about do you believe in God, it's what you grasp. What is it Jordan Peterson said? It's what what comes to your attention, what's brought to your attention that you attend to. So our individual virtues that we should be working on are going to be individual to us. We'll see. This is the thing I want to work on this week. Again, I don't remember where I read it, and it's not necessarily in here, that he put these together in this order on one voyage back from England to the U.S.
Okay.
And that's when he started this project. That's how he started it. He had time to think, and he thought it through, and he said, this is what I'm condensing into what I want to do. And he got the 12, and then he added the 13th just a little bit later.
Yeah, it's not a quick one-night project. It does take a bit of empty space.
Yeah, and this isn't something that I would recommend that you just take this template and print it out and start working on it. You've got to start thinking about it and thinking about how it relates to you, what temperance means to you. And there are things that each of us have issues with that someone else doesn't have an issue with. Benjamin Franklin didn't have the same issues that we have in today's world. He didn't have a Minecraft or a Tetris game, or even, he might have had playing cards and solitaire. Might have had solitaire at that time, but
Oh.
not even sure if the cards were around then. When did playing cards come into existence? I'm interested in that now.
And I mean, certainly they had dice.
Playing cards origin, about 619 AD. So 600 playing cards came into effect.
Interesting.
China, about 600. So 1370s, they probably appeared in their current classification, ace through king. So yeah, they were around at the time, but he didn't include playing cards or gambling.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem that he was seeing everybody was having.
Right. Let's go with silence. What does silence mean to us now? He says, speak not, but what maybe benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversations.
Being on purpose with your communication, and also maybe refraining from gossip, especially. I think that would be something.
So gossip is one word that we would add now. That I don't know that they talked about gossip then, but gossip is a big word in our current society. Any political move or slander, libel slander, things like that, that's just pointing out things incorrect. I think small talk. How do you...
Small talk. Trifling conversation is a synonymous with small talk.
That just something that you're just talking about, something not to talk about. So you don't have anything important to say. Talk about the weather.
I think that one's really easy for me to follow because that's what I do. I don't really spend a lot of time trying to keep up with people with small talk, but it does I think it paints me in a standoffish kind of way. I think people want small talk, and that's how they think
Communicating.
that they're friends with someone. That if you're friends with someone, then they're talking with you all the time about, you know, what's going on. They're gossiping, they're talking about weather and sports and stuff, and that's how you know someone's your friend.
And how can a normal person like that, how can you talk to someone all day long and never say anything? I have a hard
And
time
never
with that.
say anything.
I have a hard time with that. And I'll bring up a question. It's kind of like the juntos, the queries. I live in queries. I don't live in, what's happening or what the sport team's doing. But, and that's why you have to have a sports team that you follow so that you can operate in this small talk community. If you don't have these passions, these pastimes of a sport team or a gambling thing you're following or shows or your shows you're watching, that you can't talk about what happened on The Office last week, or I don't even know what shows are on now. Are there any shows that are currently going that is in the public view?
Mm,
What's being built?
Goodness, I don't know because I'm not on.
We do have The Chosen. The Chosen is a season that's being built.
Okay. We have that. You have that. I'm not paying any attention to that either, so I don't know. I mean, like maybe my neighbor is totally into Dancing with the Stars or something like that, but I have no idea what's going on.
You don't have one that you even know about that's building. What if anything, you're following that's building still? NCIS.
No, not even that. I mean, that's my husband, but that's not me. There's this show, this little mini series thing that was on YouTube at start, but now it's on Netflix. It's called The Amazing Digital Circus, and there's 5 episodes now, and my kids are all excited and waiting for the next episode to drop or whatever, and it's like it's a few months in between or something. I'm not super attentive to it, but my little guide made me sit and watch all of them the other day, and now I'm up to speed on
Now
what happens.
you're okay to be in that trifling conversation about that show.
Yeah, now I know. Now I know what's going
So
on.
I think that's, and what would we call that type of thing under silence? And it's under silence. Maybe we'd change the name of that even. It's pop culture. Is that pop culture?
Yeah.
Just what's happening around the world today. P. Diddy's thing, whatever he did, I don't even know, but I know his name. I have no idea who he is. Or whatever Taylor Swift is doing, is the pop culture idea. Popular. What's popular in the day? What teams even played in the Super Bowl last year?
Right. All of this, it's a way to keep you connected to the greater society that you live in, but maybe you don't care to be connected. Maybe there are smaller communities that you do care to be part of.
And there's more things that you can do. It's the spectator side, I think. So I'd use spectator silence. You don't want to be a spectator. You want to be a man in the arena, not the spectator, not someone in the crowd, but the spectators. That may be how I would phrase it now, is do something and do the work. Don't just spectate. Talk about it. That's what he's talking about, trifling conversations. Right now, it's just talking about pop culture and what's happening, what Donald Trump is doing this week. That's just as pop culture as anything else.
Yeah, there's the homepage of YouTube and the suggested feed on Facebook, and social media is feeding everyone this pop culture environment.
With his first statement here, I thought I knew what was right and wrong. So do we know what's right and wrong in pop culture? Is there a right and wrong? You gossip. We identify gossip as a wrong side of it. What's the right side? How should we react to it? That's what we have to think in ourselves, right?
Yeah, it's a subjective thing, right?
Subjective. Each person has to identify what I see as right and wrong. And if I can identify this is what I believe is right, this is what I believe is wrong, why should I not try to always do what's right and never do what's wrong?
Right. Correct.
Correct. And you're setting up so if I call it spectatorism, I don't want to be a spectatorism in anything. If I'm going to be in a discussion or in a group or in a class, I'm not going to be one who just sits there and thinks about something else. I'm going to engage that class as a participant.
So spectatorism would be what you're avoiding. So what would you name the virtue?
Well, silence. Yeah, silence is the positive thing. So what are you doing? Well, and I stated it's the Roosevelt statement, the man in the arena. Activist, not an activist. Activist is too strong. Participant. Curator. I like that word.
Okay.
I want to be a curator of my life as opposed to a spectator of my life. So be the one that puts it in silence, though how he did. And it may not fit right there, but along that concept we were talking about, I'd rather curate my life than spectate my life.
That makes sense.
Am I using that word right? What's curator mean to you?
It means cultivate is what I'm saying. Like you're pulling together the good things. It's not just a collection. It's a curated, intentionally pulled together.
It is a museum or collection, a keeper or custodian of a museum or collection. I'm a curator of ideas, though, of concepts. As he curated this into 13 virtues, I'm curating my life.
Yeah, and curators don't just go out and snag up every little piece of history that they can find. They're crafting a collection with intention,
Yeah, it's got care, concern about it, not just collection. It's a collection with a purpose.
It's not a hoard.
Yeah, not a hoard.
Yeah. All right. Oh, we're really close to not having any more time right now.
Oh, that's right. So what I wanted just summarize that, each of these 13 principles, that'll take a long time to go through, but each individual needs to go through it for themselves.
For themselves.
This is a subjective list. This list isn't for all of us. It's an idea, a representation of what he thought for himself in the 1800s, 1700s.
Yes.
250 years ago, he was working this out. We need to work it out for ourselves today. And we should. It would be a right thing to do towards that concept. Let's finish our conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for talking to me. We'll expect to see any and all of you in future episodes. And we've responded to a few comments recently. We'd love to have your comments on any platform that you're hearing this on, and we'll respond. We'll and hopefully continue to talk back and forth with you. Give us a call. There is a phone number too. You can call us. But the webpage, doyouhaveaminutepodcast.com, will be the location point. But any place you're listening to this. What are we doing next? Do we have the idea?
I do kind of have an idea. We'll just talk in a couple of weeks, and it will be a good conversation as usual.
We'll welcome you at that point. Looking forward to it. Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.